Okay, Java friends, I'm going to do a quick overview here of how to configure your Amazon EC2 instance running Tomcat for CI/CD, continuous integration, continuous deployment from GitHub using GitHub Actions. And hopefully this won't be too terribly convoluted. The idea being that, of course, when you go to Tomcat and you're doing this manually, you have to go into the manager app, and here we are inside the manager app, and for each of your applications, every time you want to deploy the latest and greatest version of your application, you got to undeploy what you already have and then redeploy the updated WAR file, and you're doing this all through the Tomcat GUI. It's kind of clunky. It's not great. Wouldn't it be nice to be able to just push to GitHub and have GitHub do the rest and Tomcat accept what's coming from GitHub? Good news, you can. So here we go. Before we get too carried away, you do need to configure your EC2 instance a little bit to be able to accept traffic coming from GitHub. So you're going to need to log into terminal. Okay, so you got to log into your EC2 instance, and I do that through terminal. So if you get a terminal window open here, and I'm at my root folder for being able to SSH into my EC2 instance, and here we go, and it's logged in now to my EC2 instance, which of course is running right here at this IP address. So we got to adjust a couple files, and I'm going to provide you with some info. This particular link right here, this blog post, is what I'm referring to at the moment. And basically what we got to do is go into a couple files located at these, inside these directories. We're basically going to comment out this particular constraint that says inside of Tomcat that it's not going to allow access from any machine other than the machine that Tomcat is installed on. That's what this Valve class name, etc. constraint is. So that is located in a couple places. These two different files. One is in the manager meta-inf directory, and the other is in host manager meta-inf directory. So let's do that quick. I've already done it, but I'll just show you where it is. So actually, I'm just going to grab it and CD to it. Oop. I don't want to put the file name at the end of it. I could sudo nano, I suppose. I like going to the directory itself and then sudo nano file name to bring it up. And as you can see, I have already commented it out, just like you would a normal HTML comment. So be sure you do that inside of both of these files. And then I'm going to Control X out of it. Normally, if I had edited it, it would ask, do you want to save? So be sure to save and hit enter when it's time to do that. So you would do that for both of these files. Be sure to comment those things out. And then after that, so now you've opened up Tomcat to be accessible from remote machines, but you also need to tell Tomcat that it's okay for the user, the Tomcat manager, to be accessing Tomcat via a remote script. So there's like there's at least four, there might even be more than that, 4 different roles that Tomcat provides for its managers. And one is for the GUI itself, to be able to mess around in here. And then there's a text role that allows that user to run remote scripts, and there's like a view only one, and there's a couple other ones. That's all spelled out pretty plainly in I think it's in the actual Tomcat documentation. I didn't put a link to that right here, but there might even be a nod to it further down. So if you want to read more about what those roles are, by all means. But basically, to find them and mess around with them, you gotta... Here, let's look at this link for a second. I'm pretty sure this talks about it. Oh, that talks about the actual command. So we will get to that in just a second. I could have sworn there's a... Yeah, here we go. So we're going to tell Tomcat to, like, we're going to update our manager user with some additional role functionality. So in addition to having manager GUI role, we're also going to make sure that we have manager script in there. The rest of these probably not that important. Manager status is the view only that I was talking about. I decided to paste all of those in there. That is risky. There is the risk of like a cross-scripting attack vulnerability, evidently. I'm not sure how or why that is, but I've been reading up on it, and from what I'm seeing, it's actually not recommended to have a single user of Tomcat be assigned all of the roles. Like, you would probably want to set up a separate user, one for GUI management, another for that has like just the script access privileges, etc. So if you want to follow best practices, that would probably be the right approach to take. For the sake of simplicity, what I did was just paste all of these roles under my existing admin user. And the way that you access that is this path right here. So you got to go to your conf folder. This might not be the same for you, but your conf folder, Tomcat users XML. So let's see if I can get to that relatively easily without having to think too hard about it. Pretty sure I'll just cd up to there and show all files. And I'll cd into the conf directory, and there is my Tomcat users XML. The XSD is actually how the users operate, but XML is what we want, so we will sudo nano into that. And you got to scroll down a ways. So I might have to blur some of this out. But at any rate, I did try to make a second user, and it wasn't working so well. So I just reverted back in GitHub. I'm just trying to impersonate my my usual administrator, and as you can see, I assigned all of the roles to that original Tomee admin. So yeah, you got your username, you got your password, probably going to blur those out, but remember what these are so that you can put them into GitHub as secrets, because of course you don't want to make any of this info publicly visible if you don't have to, and GitHub secrets makes it easy to do that. Okay, so we're pretty much done inside of our EC2 instance for now. Hopefully, barring any issues, we won't need to come back in here. I will say there's one other step that I think you should consider, which is installing a script inside of your EC2 instance that will automatically start Tomcat upon reboot. So if your instance ever struggles, if it ever has problems, it has to like go down momentarily and then come back up, you know that of course usually you have to log into your EC2 instance and start Tomcat. Kind of a pain. I will probably come up with a second video that shows how to install a script that would automatically start Tomcat on reboot of your EC2 instance, just so that you don't ever have to think about it that much. It'd be nice to just have it up and running at all times. So that said, for now, since I already have that script running, and everything else is configured. We have configured Tomcat to allow remote access. We have configured the user information accordingly so that our admin user or a second user of your choosing has the manager script role, which will allow this text file remote update deployment to take place. And now we can actually start working with GitHub. So I have already set this up for my team project. So we're not gonna, I'd like to walk you through it a little bit. So maybe I'll do it for my individual repo right now, and we can have some fun with that. And you can see the process. So my project, my indie project, is called Salon Solutions. And to get this rolling, I am going to start off, before we dive into like secrets and stuff, we're gonna get GitHub Actions configured. So basically, this is a Maven project. I want to perform a Maven build inside of GitHub upon every push that I make. So it's really cool. GitHub Actions is a fairly new feature. It's about a year old, and we can dive into the Actions tab, and there's a whole bunch of options that come up. It's like sky's the limit. Tons and tons of stuff. There's even a deploy to Amazon ECS service. So basically, think of the way that this is different from what we're doing right now is ECS is like it's a whole bunch of Amazon EC2 instances, usually like a whole cluster of them all over the place that help deploy your app and give it more of a global presence rather than having it deployed to a single machine. We are not going to worry about that, but I am very curious to investigate this further because that looks like it really streamlines the process. Instead, for now, we are just going to go, there's a couple Maven options. I am comfortable working with this one. I don't really know what GitHub Packages is yet. So instead, I just did a simple build and test a Java project with Maven. So we're going to set up this workflow, and it's going to do a lot of the heavy lifting for us right now. I'm going to call this Maven Salon Solutions build, just so that I can keep it straight from my other build YAML files. And I'm going to name it something specific to the project Salon Solutions build deployment. Okay, and it's got a couple commands in here. Basically, you could have it do something on every push. You could have it do something on every pull. You could specify which branch would trigger such events. I want to trigger it off of master branch pushes. Don't want to have anything happen when I do a pull request, so I'm going to delete that out of there. It has our different jobs. I believe we have a very recent version of Ubuntu, so I'm not going to change this Ubuntu latest operating system. And I'm not sure why it's defaulting to V2. I did some weird stuff with I tried to do a git filter branch, and I think my repo got a little confused. I believe I want to pull from version 1 of my repo. I could be wrong about that. Don't quote me on it. I think most of us, this is going to default to V1. If it does turn out that it needs to be V2, so be it. But I'm pretty sure it doesn't. I think V1 is what you want as far as what version of your code it's going to check out. So this checkout function is basically... a checkout is basically grabbing the most current code that you have pushed to your repository, and it's going to compile it, build it based on your POM XML settings here. So down below, I'm going to change our JDK before I go any further here. We're using JDK 11, so let's make sure we have that in there. This particular step is building with Maven. We're running this package command, which, as I was referring to earlier, is working with the POM XML. Now, I also then want to deploy to Tomcat. And the way that I do that is get another command going. And we will call this deploy to Tomcat. And it doesn't like my indentation here, so I'll move that over. And I'm going to give it a little line of breathing room. And down below, we'll have a run command. And basically this, I believe it was this thread that we were looking at that had the nice layout of what our command's going to be here. Where did I put that? It's up above. So basically, here's like an example. It's actually Tomcat 8 has a different version of that, which is down here. So we're going to create something very similar to this. And you'll notice that there's a whole bunch of like stuff in curly brackets, and that is referring to Tomcat secrets. I'm not quite sure about their formatting here. I believe it needs to be double curly brackets, or braces rather. I have it written out for my own purposes, so let's go to that. So there's a few things going on here. You'll notice that we've got this curl command, and I don't know exactly what's happening here. All I know is that it's attempting to connect to the EC2 instance of your choosing, and that's passed in as an argument over here. And it's saying, okay, what version of the manager app are you trying to access? We're trying to access the text version of the Tomcat Manager app, and we are attempting to deploy. Here is our path, and then we also want to tell it to update. So we're assuming that you've already deployed, and you are simply trying to update that WAR file and deploy the latest and greatest version. So make sure you have this and update true. Notice also we've got little single quotation marks around that particular piece. So this whole thing we're going to stick in an Amazon secret called true. I'm going to change it to my this is my team project repo. I got to change that to my indie project repo. So we're going to do a couple things before we finish out our script over here. We got to, let's start passing some of this other stuff into our Amazon secrets so that we can build it out in an appropriate way. So I'm still, I'm not ready to commit any of this yet. I've got to get some other things set. So I'm going to get a new tab open. I'm going to go to settings under my indie repo, and that's going to bring up another tab. And down here we have an area for secrets. And basically I get to add a new secret, and I get to tell it, what do I want to call this? This is going to be my Amazon EC2 indie repo address. All right. And I'm going to paste that in there. And like I said, I got to change the name of that to my actual indie repo, which is Salon Solutions. And update true. Great. And basically the whole value of this is just going to be saved as a secret that we can reference in a moment. So we're going to add that secret. And I also want to add my Tomcat authentication. So remember, you want to, whatever credentials you want to be logging in with, whether you created a second user for your Tomcat Manager app that only has the role of manager-script assigned, or you just put the manager-script role and assign that to your existing admin user. you got to put those credentials in, so your username and your password for that particular user. So I'm going to put mine in. I'll probably blur this out. I noticed that that other example even had our war file path set up. So that's pretty exciting. So we're going to run this once. It's not going to work just yet. Actually, we'll run it without our deployment. Let's run this without our Tomcat deploy. So I'm just going to delete this out of here for now. We'll put this in just a second. We want to know, where is the war file that we need to use? Where's that, once we build it, where is it, so that we can tell the next step to pass that in as an argument and send it over to our EC2 instance. So I'm going to commit this, and as soon as I commit it, it's going to start to build. So that's exciting. I'm going to say adds CI CD initial build step to Indy repo, and we're going to commit it directly to the master branch. I'm going to commit that, and I'm going to show you what happens here. This is kind of exciting. So I'm going to go to Actions, and we're going to see that there's the commit I just made, and if I click on build, I can watch it in action. It says starting your workflow run. So let's just watch this and see how it plays out. So we get to kind of watch the logs as they tick by. And it's going to build that war file. It takes a minute. And I don't have any tests in there, but obviously best practice would be put tests as your first step. And if your tests don't pass, don't build and don't deploy, because you don't want to deploy broken code. That would be silly. Okay, and if I scroll all the way down, these little arrows twirl open. If I scroll all the way down on the build with Maven step, I can see where my war file is. Here it is. I'm a little confused by why it's all starred out. That wasn't the case yesterday. That makes me happy that it is, but for our purposes, that might be a little bit confusing. Let's just refer back to my original piece here. Yeah, so there's some important info that is getting blocked out right now, and that's maybe for the best. What if I go to complete job? Does that show? That doesn't show me much. Okay. Yeah, you want this whole path. So I believe what we're missing here, let me just copy that and compare it. Home runner work. Yeah, it's blocking out the name of my repo, which is fine. But just for our purposes, we're going to want to make sure that that's in there. So I'm just going to copy my team project version, because the path follows a similar structure, and I'm going to make this a secret key as well. Basically, I was showing you that build step so that you could see where your war file path is. Hopefully, it's not all starred out for you, but if it is, that's fine, because that's actually better security for your purposes anyway. Let's go back to our secrets area up here, and we're going to add that as a new secret. I'm going to call that my Amazon, or no, excuse me, my war file path. And I'm going to paste that in there, and I got to change it to actually be my changing it so that it matches my Indy repo. I don't want to refer to my team project right now. Okay, great. So that's in there. We're going to make that a secret key as well. And then all of that will be masked going forward, which will be really cool. So now we know where our WAR file is being built. We know what our credential, our Tomcat login info is, and what our address, our EC2 address is. I'm pretty sure the way that you find your EC2 address, just in case you didn't know, is if you go to connect. Oops, it's going to make me sign in again. Blah, blah, blah. I'm sure you probably know what your EC2 address is, but just in case you needed to refresh your memory, if you go to connect, it kind of shows you exactly what that is. And then just follow the structure that we have already in place in my example. So I'm going to go back into my workflow file right here. And we're going to edit our workflow file so that now we're going to start deploying to Tomcat. Okay, so as we were trying to do before, we're going to add a name for this. We're going to call it deploy to Tomcat, and we're going to have a run command, and we'll fix the indentation in a second. But basically, I want to follow this format. And just update it accordingly. Okay, so it doesn't like the indentation, so let's get that fixed. And now this is not valid. So Tomcat secrets actually use double curly braces, believe it or not. So I've got to update this a little bit. And then I've got this is going to be double curly brace. We're going to put our Amazon secret names in here. So our secret username is actually not that. It is username right here. So the way that you access it is secrets dot, use dot notation, and put your username, secret title in there, and then again secrets dot, put your secret password in there. Oops, here we go. And there we are. And now we want secrets dot war file path. And I also don't want this flopping around for the world to see, so we're just going to put our whole darn Indy repo address in there, which also has the single quotes, incidentally, so we don't have to think about any of that. We're just going to pass in the whole darn secret as an argument. $, double curly brace. And I got to put secrets in front of it with a dot, and put a couple double curly braces behind it, and they have spaces in between the curly braces on the secret names and stuff, so just FYI. So we're logging in to Tomcat and deploying our WAR file to this particular EC2 instance. So it's still not liking my indentation. I'm not sure why. Oh, I know. It's because I need a little space right there. There. That, in theory, should get rid of our... Is it still mad at us here? Oops, stay on the page. Okay, it's not giving us that bad indentation error message anymore. So, anyway, yeah, to recap, we've got our Tomcat username, Tomcat password, got some commands. I got to look up, so this is logging into, this is committing a command as a user. I need to look up what -v and -t are. Then we've got our war file path. We've got our repo address with that update equals true at the very end, which is very important. And that in theory should work. So I'm going to start a commit, and I'm going to add an optional description. I'll just say adds Tomcat deployment credentials, warpath, and EC2 address info command to Maven solutions.build. Okay, we're going to commit those changes. We're going to go back and we're going to watch and make sure that this did what I'm hoping it's supposed to do. It did, and in theory right now it is building and deploying. I don't have any JSPs. Well, I might have some JSPs built. I think I have one. But I'm not going to show you those. In theory, this is deploying. So if I go to the Actions tab, this is deploying right now. It's building. If I click on this latest commit and I go to build, I can watch the logs. So, you know, in theory, this should not give us any errors. I had the hardest time for a while, you know, because I didn't have my Tomcat username when my Tomcat user roles assigned properly. I had the hardest time getting it to authenticate. I kept getting a bunch of like 401 unauthorized errors, and so I'm hoping this saves you some steps. Okay, looks like we are connected to our EC2 instance. We are completely uploaded and fine, which is pretty awesome. And yeah, it looks like it went through just fine, which is beautiful to see. So in theory now, let's kind of rewind. We're going to jump back. We're going to switch gears back to our team project. Here I am inside of my, I can kind of show you, you know, we've got our EC2 instance. So like my team project's called Freeway Forecasts. And so we're all deploying to this AWS publicly available static IP address. And this is our index JSP. And here are my awesome team members right here. So this is all we have so far. Obviously, this is just, you know, to be able to see something happening. And we got our little click here to get the weather forecast for your route. And then it goes to a GUI interface where it asks where are you and where you're going. At any rate, let's say I just want to make a quick update to this JSP. Let's jump into IntelliJ. Here I am. I'm in my index JSP. And so we got our button that says click to get the weather. Let's add, I don't want to add it inside the form. Let's add just another like basic message to test something here. Let's add an H3 and we'll say this application is designed to keep you safe on the roads, no matter what the weather. I don't know, something like that. None of this is set in stone. This is just for testing purposes. Technically, I should be indenting all this stuff. Please don't hold that against me right now. Okay, so we made a little change to our index.jsp. Before I do anything, I'm going to git pull. Okay, I'm up to date. And I'm going to save. And now I'm going to get status. What did we change here? We changed our index.jsp. Let's do add, oops. And a git commit. Adds H3 tag with safety message to index.jsp. Okay, great. So I've committed it. Now I'm going to push it, and we're going to go watch it on GitHub. So there's my push, and it's done, and I just push to master. So we're going to jump into Freeway Forecasts, and here I am in my Freeway Forecast repo. We're going to go to Actions, and let's watch it build, because that is fun. And we're going to click on Build. We're going to watch the logs. So it's doing its setup. Now, I believe GitHub only gives you so many minutes of build and deploy time, like time that its computer, its back end can be processing your stuff. I need to look into how many minutes that actually is. Also, I should mention, if I didn't point it out earlier, that this is not best practices. Like, before you deploy, before you even build, you should be running tests. Like, you don't want to be, I think I did say something like this earlier, you don't want to be obviously building and certainly not deploying code that hasn't been tested and potentially doesn't work. So just remember that in that workflow file, you can specify before your build step, where it's building your, off of your POM XML file, you can have tests run and then make the build contingent upon the test, so that the build doesn't run unless the tests pass. So that would be best practices and something that you can look up on your own. Okay, so it looks like, we're okay. It did its thing. We got green check marks all the way down. And if I go back over to my Freeway Forecasts, if I hit refresh, boom, there's my H3 that we just added. And that took what, 2 minutes? 1 minute? I didn't have to manually log into my manager app and undeploy and redeploy, and isn't that nice? I like that. So remember also to, on your EC2 instance, install that script that will automatically start Tomcat upon reboot, because obviously if Tomcat is not running, then your CI/CD pipeline with GitHub Actions will not run either. This would not be successful unless Tomcat is running, because it wouldn't be able to establish a connection. So it would make sense for you to go in and make sure you have that automatically restart Tomcat upon EC2 instance reboot script, which I'll make another video for that at some point. But anyway, hope that helps. It's going to be, I think, really cool to be able to watch in real time our application deploy to the web, publicly visible, without having to go through too much headache to make that happen. So, all right, good luck, and let me know if you have any questions. Thanks.